Hi there, this is Dr. Anna Maria Helt with Basmati.com, and this week I'm going to talk about Astragalus. And so here is some ground up Astragalus root. You'll often find it for sale in Chinese medicine shops as a kind of a popsicle stick shaped slice. And you don't want to buy it as a powder, even though it's useful as a powder, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment, because powdered herbs in general are only good for a few months. So try to buy it in chunks or in the popsicle stick slices, and then you can chop it up as fine as you need it or grind it for use. And so what do you use it for? Well, Astragalus actually has thousands of years of history being used in Chinese medicine, and it is one of the premier tonics that comes out of Chinese medicine. For instance, in that tradition, it's known as a spleen qi tonic. And if you aren't familiar with Chinese medicine, you might be like, what does that mean? And so the spleen in Chinese medicine is actually different than what we think of as the spleen in Western medicine. In Chinese medicine, the spleen is all about things like nutrient absorption, nutrient assimilation, and transport throughout the body to where it's needed. The spleen is also involved in fluid transport throughout the body. And so when the spleen qi, or the spleen energy, is deficient, people can wind up being malnourished or having wasting issues, low appetite, fatigue, fluid retention in various parts of the body and such. And so Astragalus is a wonderful tonic, to put it in Western terminology, to help us better absorb and utilize our nutrients. Now, Astragalus is also a wonderful immune system tonic. And so what it can do is help over time strengthen our immune system so that we're more resistant to things like cold and flu. Sorry, my voice is a little off. I just decided to swallow my own spit. Awesome. Anyway, so great for the immune system to prevent colds and flus and such. The issue is with a tonic like Astragalus, and you could say the same thing about other immune tonics like reishi, is that in Chinese medicine, they don't want you to use them while you're actually sick, meaning when you have a cold or when you have a flu, because tonics such as Astragalus are thought to drive that pathological factor even deeper into the body and feed it. And so great for prevention and to make you more resistant to catching bugs of various ilk, but just don't use it right in the middle of your cold or flu. And so it's a great immune herb. And in fact, there is research done overseas looking at the use of Astragalus as adjunctive therapy for people being treated with chemo and radiation and such with cancer. And there have been really good effects there. Now, if you are going through cancer therapy, you don't want to go it alone and start throwing herbs and supplements and such on what you're taking without working with somebody, because those chemo drugs can be life-saving. They can also be really toxic. And if you take an herb that in some way changes the metabolism of that drug, it can be really dangerous. It can make it not work, or it can increase the levels to where you're getting really sick from the drug, more sick than you already may be from the drug. So you want to work with a very well-trained practitioner before doing anything like that, and talk to your doctor before doing anything like that. And so anyway, interesting studies, and I wish that there was more work being done in the U.S. looking at these tonics, reishi and mushrooms and such, together with therapies, because there have been a number of really great studies being done elsewhere that we're not doing yet. And I have ideas on why they're not doing it in the United States, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Anyway, so Astragalus is also a wonderful heart tonic. I'm just going to close my email so that it's not beeping the whole time I'm doing this. I've just switched to a new computer and I'm finding different buggy things going on. We're usually right in the middle of a video, but it's getting better. Anyway, Astragalus is a heart tonic. It's a wonderful tonic for protecting the heart from damage, supporting its function, and it's also a great lung and respiratory tonic as well. And for people like me that live at high elevation, working on those two things together is great, because we don't have so much oxygen up here in the Rocky Mountains. It makes our body better utilize what is there in the air. So great heart and lung strengthening herb, Astragalus. Also a kidney and liver protective herb, Astragalus, and so it can help protect both of those really key organs in the body from damage from various sources, including just the crud we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis in our air and in our water and such. And so really great tonic. Now, many ways to use astragalus. One of the more traditional ways is to make a decoction. And if you don't know what a decoction is, you can look up my tea making article on basmati.com, and it will tell you how to make a decoction. What a decoction is a fancy word meaning that you simmered the herb for some length of time and then steeped it a little bit longer. And you're doing that with hard roots like astragalus, mushrooms, and things like that to get the medicinal principles out. These are tough. You need to simmer them a little bit to get the medicine out versus something like mint leaves that are a lot flimsier, where you can just dump a little bit of hot water on them and you're good to go. So astragalus tea, it's actually really good tasting, I think. It's a tonic herb. It actually is sweet. Tonic herbs usually have a sweet aspect to their flavor. Now, if you eat Lucky Charms and you're a sugar junkie, you may not notice this kind of sweet that we herbalists are referring to here. But for those of us who don't eat a lot of sugar, you can definitely taste that pleasant sweetness. And the tea is actually kind of thick too as well, very pleasing. And you can drink the tea as is, but you could also use it as broth. And astragalus makes a wonderful soup base. And, a great time to talk about that is actually going into the fall, winter, cold and flu season. But we actually have a summer cold and flu season as well. And so now's not a bad time to be thinking about these immune bolstering herbs as food. Now, another really cool way to use astragalus in soups and stews is as a thickener. So you can actually grind it up into a powder and use it in place of things like cornstarch. And it's going to be a healthier option, and it's going to have all of these great medicinal benefits. And it tastes really good. It lends that sweet kind of nutty flavor to whatever soup or stew or gravy or sauce that you're making. And so I am always a fan of finding ways to use our medicine as food. Yeah, and even Hippocrates talked about that. Let your food be your medicine and your medicine your food. Now, if there is any acute inflammation going on in the body, like I said, you've got the flu or you've got some raging digestive tract issue going on, you might not want to use astragalus. Also, because it does have some immune stimulating properties along with immune building. You also want to be careful with astragalus if you have autoimmune issues going on. So where you're kind of in this chronic state of inflammation where it can flare up and be acute. That's another area where you would want guidance instead of going it alone or do more research there. And I think I touched on everything that I wanted to mention about this really great and ancient tonic plant. Oh, one more thing I want to mention. So astragalus is native to China, and you can grow it pretty easily depending on your climate. But for those of you who live in North America, like where I live in Colorado, we have species in the Astragalus genus that grow here. They're toxic. They're not the same as Astragalus membranaceus, which is the traditional one. So if you have plants that are called astragalus in your area, they may not be what you think they are. They may be toxic. And so just know what you're doing if you're out and about and picking a plant that you think is this medicine when actually it's a different species. And so with that, I am going to zip it and wish you good health. Until next time.